Greek Island Love by Nathaniel Bishop. The warm Aegean breeze ruffled Sophia's chestnut hair as she leaned against the ferry railing, watching whitecaps dance across the azure waters. At 28, after years of careful planning and saving, she had finally landed a summer internship at the Naxos Archaeological Museum. Her stomach churned with equal parts excitement and nervousness as the island's outline emerged on the horizon, its ancient marble quarries gleaming in the morning sun. As the ferry docked, Sophia gathered her modest luggage, one backpack and a small suitcase containing everything she'd need for the next 3 months. The picturesque port of Naxos town welcomed her with its characteristic whitewashed buildings and narrow, winding streets. The scent of grilled souvlaki and fresh bread wafted from nearby tavernas, mingling with the salty sea air. "Ms. Dallas." A voice called out in lightly accented English. She turned to see a man in his early 30s wearing khaki shorts and a navy polo shirt with the museum's logo. His dark hair was neatly trimmed, and kind green eyes squinted at the corners as he smiled professionally. "I'm Alexis Nikolaou, assistant curator at the museum. Dr. Papadakis sent me to meet you." "Please call me Sophia," she replied, shaking his offered hand. "Thank you for coming to get me." "Let me help you with your luggage," he said, reaching for her suitcase. "The museum's about a 10-minute walk from here. I can point out some useful landmarks along the way." As they walked through the narrow streets, Alexis proved to be an excellent guide, showing her practical locations like the nearest grocery store and pharmacy, while also sharing interesting historical facts about the medieval Venetian buildings they passed. His obvious knowledge and enthusiasm for the island's heritage made Sophia feel more at ease about her decision to spend her summer here. The museum itself was housed in a restored 19th-century building, its stone walls holding centuries of history. Dr. Elena Papadakis, the head curator, greeted Sophia with warm professionalism. The older woman's silver hair was pulled back in a neat bun, and her sharp eyes missed nothing as she gave Sophia a thorough orientation. "Alexis will show you to your accommodation," Dr. Papadakis said after they'd covered the essentials. "You'll start properly tomorrow at 9 a.m. We have quite a backlog of Cyclidic artifacts requiring cataloging." Sophia's apartment, provided as part of her internship, was a modest studio above a family-run taverna. It was simple but clean, with a small balcony offering a glimpse of the sea between the neighboring buildings. The following weeks fell into a pleasant rhythm. Sophia spent her days cataloging artifacts, assisting with research, and helping prepare for the museum's upcoming exhibition on Cyclidic culture. She discovered that Alexis was not only knowledgeable but also patient and willing to share his expertise. They often found themselves working late, engrossed in discussions about archaeological techniques and historical theories. Their professional relationship began to shift subtly during her second month on the island. It started with shared lunch breaks in the museum's courtyard, where their conversations gradually moved beyond archaeology to their personal lives. Sophia learned that Alexis had studied in Athens before returning to his home island, driven by a deep connection to its history and culture. He, in turn, listened intently to her stories about growing up in a Greek-American family and her dreams of connecting with her heritage through archaeology. One evening, as they were finishing up their work, Alexis hesitated before asking, "Some of us from the museum are going hiking to the Kouros of Apollonius tomorrow. Would you like to join us? It's a fascinating sight, and the walk is beautiful." The group turned out to be smaller than Sophia expected, just Alexis herself and Maria, one of the museum's conservators. They spent the morning climbing to the ancient quarry, where a massive unfinished statue lay as if sleeping in the Mediterranean sun. Maria took numerous photographs, then announced she needed to head back early to relieve her babysitter. Left alone, Sophia and Alexis sat in the shade of an olive tree, sharing water and fresh fruit they'd brought. The conversation flowed easily between them, punctuated by comfortable silences, as they gazed out over the spectacular view of the coastline. "My grandfather used to bring me here when I was a boy," Alexis said softly. "He was a fisherman, but he loved the island's history. He would tell me stories about the ancient craftsmen who worked these quarries, how they lived and dreamed." His eyes met Sophia's. "What about you? What drew you to archaeology?" Sophia smiled, touching a rough piece of marble beside her. My grandmother, used to tell me Greek myths before bed. I would imagine walking the same paths as those ancient heroes and heroines. When I took my first archaeology class in college, it felt like those childhood dreams coming to life." Their eyes held for a moment longer than usual, and Sophia felt her heart skip a beat. The air between them seemed to change, charged with possibility. Over the next few weeks, they found more reasons to spend time together outside work. Alexis showed her hidden beaches and lesser-known archaeological sites, sharing stories passed down through generations of islanders. Sophia found herself increasingly drawn to his quiet passion and genuine nature. Their first kiss happened naturally one evening, after they'd stayed late at the museum, discussing a particularly interesting set of pottery fragments. As they stood in the courtyard saying goodnight, the setting sun painting the old stones gold, Alexis gently tucked a strand of hair behind Sophia's ear. She leaned into his touch, and their lips met in a sweet, tender kiss. They took things slowly, both aware of their professional relationship and the temporary nature of Sophia's stay. But their connection deepened as they worked side by side, sharing both intellectual and emotional intimacy. Their relationship faced its first real test when local farmers uncovered what appeared to be ancient walls while clearing a field. Dr. Papadakis assigned Sophia and Alexis to conduct the initial survey, trusting them to remain professional despite their growing personal connection. The site proved to be significant, potentially a Mycenaean settlement that could reshape understanding of Bronze Age trade routes in the Cyclades. As they carefully documented their findings, Sophia and Alexis worked seamlessly together, their shared passion for archaeology enhancing rather than compromising their work. That evening, sitting on Sophia's small balcony with cups of coffee, they faced the reality of her approaching departure. Her internship would end in 2 weeks, and she had graduate school waiting in the States. "I've been offered a permanent position here," Alexis said quietly. "Dr. Papadakis is retiring next year, and they want me to take over as head curator." Sophia's heart clenched. "That's wonderful news, Alexis. You deserve it." "Sophia," he took her hand. "I know we've only known each other for a few months, but what we have, it's real. The museum will need additional staff to handle the new site excavation. If you're interested, Dr. Papadakis has agreed to extend your position through next year. You could defer graduate school." Sophia's mind raced with possibilities. "Are you sure? About both the job and us?" Alexis squeezed her hand. "I've never been more sure of anything. But I understand if you need time to think about it. It's a big decision." Sophia spent several days carefully considering her options. She spoke with her graduate advisor back home, who agreed that practical experience at an active archaeological site could enhance her academic career. She thought about her growing feelings for Alexis, how their relationship had developed naturally from shared interests into something deeper and more meaningful. 1 week before her scheduled departure, Sophia made her decision. Standing in the museum courtyard where they'd shared their first kiss, she told Alexis she would stay. Their joy was tempered by professional responsibility. At work, they maintained appropriate boundaries, earning the respect of their colleagues through their dedication and results. Outside the museum, their relationship blossomed, built on a foundation of shared passion, mutual respect, and genuine understanding. A year later, as they stood together at the opening of the new Mycenaean exhibit, Sophia knew she had made the right choice. She had found not only professional fulfillment but also a love that felt as solid as the ancient stones surrounding them, a love built gradually and thoughtfully, like the careful excavation of a precious artifact. Alexis squeezed her hand as they watched visitors examine their carefully curated displays. "Any regrets?" he asked softly. Sophia shook her head, thinking of how far they'd come. "Not one," she replied, knowing that like the best archaeological discoveries, the most precious things in life often require patience, dedication, and the courage to follow where they lead.